Hi everybody, how you doing today? Thank you for joining in. Today I'm going to show you how I made my plant labels for my garden, my little garden. I used paint stirring sticks, and the lady at Home Depot was kind enough to give me a few. And in some cases you may want to paint them first. I was just too excited to make them, and I was fine with them being just how they are. I'd really like to see how they hold up to the weather without doing anything. So that's what I'm going to do today. So the first thing I did was I went into the new monogram feature in Cricut Design Space, and I did the monograms, and we'll do that first. And then if that's all you care about is learning how to do the monograms, then you can stop at that point in the video. But the next part, we'll be doing the vertical words on the sticks. So in order to get started, I'm going to have the Cricut Joy. And obviously you can use the bigger machines if you have the Maker or one of the other ones. We need a paint stick, one or two. My regular tools. I'm using the standard grip mat, this is the small one, and I've cut several pieces of vinyl, about an inch or so. This one I cut a little bigger and I had a lot of excess, but you see how I left it long, so don't cut it down to size. I'll show you how we take care of that when I make the actual words. So these are what I had left from making the first two. So I did, red for the tomatoes, green for the peppers, and this one's going to be my squash. And you'll notice I didn't put the S on or the ES on the tomato because I wasn't sure how far down I was going to bury them in the ground. I don't have a little point, so I'll have to dig a little hole and bury them. So I just left it like that, and I wanted to make it as big as I could. But I think you've got room enough if you want to put tomatoes or you want to put peppers in the plural. So the other thing we need is the little scraper. If you have the big one, that's fine, and a piece of transfer tape. Now I've used this one a few times, so I may have to cut a new piece. I'm not sure, but I'm going to use it until it doesn't work. Your transfer tape isn't a one-time use. You can use it over and over until it just doesn't work for you anymore. So that's everything we need to get started. And next we're going to go to Design Space. So I'll see you there in a second. Okay, so we're now in Cricut Design Space. Excuse me. And the first thing you want to do is make sure at the top right that you have the Joy picked. Or whatever machine you're using. In this case, I'm using the Joy. And then we're going to click on New Project up here on the right. And if you have updated your Cricut Design Space, you should see a new icon down on the bottom left. See where I'm circling my cursor? And it says Monogram, so I'm going to click on that. And generally comes in, let me put it here, on this first one. And you put your initials up right here along the top, and put your initials in your regular initial order. First name, middle name, last name. And I'll show you why in a minute. Excuse me. And of course you want to do it in all caps. I'm not sure if okay, it comes in all caps whether you have it on cap locks or not. So that's kind of handy. And if you look, there's modern, elegant, handwritten, and vintage. And when you go into like this first one, if you scroll down, you'll see how where my cursor is, and it says LGB. Notice on the next one, it's L with a larger B, which is last name, and a G, because normally in monograms, the last name is a bigger middle initial. So if I wanted that one, that's what I would pick. So that's why I say leave your initials as they regularly are, because then you have the option to do one or the other. And probably you still would, it would be backwards. But you see this, if you did it LBG, this B would be the G. So put your initials in regular order, and then you'll see your options as you go along. The other thing, and I'm only going to touch on this a little bit because I'm making the stick, and that was the point. And I don't want people to have to sit through too much. But you also have these, what I call frames, that you can pick from. And depending which ones you pick on this list is what frames you'll get. And I'll show you in the elegant one what I mean. So if I'm going into the elegant one, and if I scroll down and I pick this a little fancier one, you'll notice there's no options here. I'm guessing because so much is going on that you don't need it. But you could take and bring in, for example, if you wanted a frame, you could bring in the initials here with the frame, bring that in, add to canvas, and then go back and add on the font that you want and get rid of the one you don't want and put in the one you do want, and you'd have to probably make this frame bigger. But we won't get that fancy today. So we're going to let's just do modern, just to keep, that way it'll keep the weeding down a little bit, hopefully. So let's see. So I'll go with, I guess I'll go with this one, but I don't want any frame on it. Okay, I'm clicking off. And it's not getting rid of my frame. Okay. And if this happens to you, I'll show you what to do, because I think they're still testing this out. So I just picked, I think it was it this one? Oh, there, now I go. So if I picked it again, it took that frame away. If you look at this right here, just for a second, I want to point out, sometimes I notice, oh, this one shows it better. See how the G is closer to the B? Well, it's going to come in that way, and you can't fix it, but when you go to put it onto your transfer tape, you could pick up the L and the G first, and then move your transfer tape a little bit, and then pick up the B to give you that little more space. But we'll just keep it simple on this one. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this one with no frame around it. And I'm going to just do add to canvas. And for some reason, I like to bring things over to the middle. And it's all set to go if it's the size you want. Now, the first thing I always like to do, because sometimes I forget, is I change it from the black. Because when I go, and I'll show, well, when you hit make it for it to go, it's black on a black mat, because they always do the mat the color of whatever you've picked, and it's harder for me to see. So I just come up to this top left where the black square is, and I just pick another color. It doesn't matter, any color, but it's just easier to see on the mat. Now for my stick is about 1 inch wide, and I've got about a 2-inch space. So let me just, let's head back to the camera for a minute, and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to put my initials up here, like these are. And see, I made it pretty close to the edge. And so when I measured it on I always keep my quilting mat handy, a small one, because I can just lay this on my mat and I can see it's just a little over 1 inch wide here, that inch wide, and it's, let me move it a little more here. So it's 1 inch wide, you can see here, and then it's about 2 inches long. So I know I need to fit it in a little bit less space than that. So let's switch back to the canvas and fix that up. So right now, this measures 1.74 long, so we're within the 2 inches, but I'm 1.2 inches tall, so that's too tall. Now I can come right here on the bottom right arrow, and I can make this bigger and smaller this way. But I know that I only want this to be about, let's say 0.75. So I'm going to come up to the height. I'm right at the top here. I'm going to highlight what's there, and I'm going to put in 0.75. And if I hit enter, it'll automatically make the width the correct proportional size. If I wanted to make this taller, but I can't make it, wider, longer, but I can't make it wider, I would have to shut off or click on this padlock and unlock it. Let me bring it in a little closer for you, and you can see it better. So the padlock is right here, and it's also right up on the top up here. But it's easier to me, it's easier to see here. If I click on the padlock, it unlocks it. Then I can move this up. I want to remember what I have. So I have 0.75 and 1.0. So I can move it down, or I can move it wider, because I've unlocked the proportions on it. I never can remember the word, but it keeps it proportionally correct. So I was at 0.75, and I was at 1. I know it was 1.0 something or other. 02, I think it was. And now I'm going to lock this again, because I want it to stay proportionally correct. Okay, now I can't touch these letters individually. That would be a whole different video for that. So for now, we're just going to stay as it is. So now that I have it ready, I'm going to come over and on the top right and hit make it. And I'm going to use my regular mat. And now it shows which size mat. I'm going to use the small mat. And I got all those strips ready, and didn't get one ready for the monogram. So I had to find a little piece. Okay, so I'm all ready to go. It's just a little guy up here in the corner. I'm going to hit continue. I'm going to use the premium vinyl. Excuse me. I have my favorites here. So if you don't have your vinyl, I'm using permanent vinyl. The sticky one, not the iron-on one. If you can't find, or if you don't have anything in your favorites, right here is browse all material. And I'm just going to type in vinyl right at the top here, top right. Hit the magnifier, and I'm going to come down, and here's premium vinyl, and I would just click on it, and it would bring it in. But let me go back there just for a second. So I can show you right here. If there's a type of either cardstock or vinyl that you use a lot and you want to put it in your favorites, just click on this star. So you can see how this one is clear and this one is filled in. That means this is in my favorites. Once you make it your favorite, just come up to the right and hit the X and come back. So I'm going to use my premium vinyl. And the next part is, so I can get back to the camera, the next part is we're going to load our mat, and once we load our mat, number 3 will come up to hit go, and go would be down here on the right. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the camera. Okay, so I grabbed a odd piece of vinyl. Move everything out of the way. My Cricut is blinking. Can you see right there? And that means it's telling me, it's waiting for me to do something. So I'm going to go ahead and take my protective sheet off. And I'm just going to put this whole piece. The reason I turned it over is because this side's curved and this side's nice and straight. So I'm going to put that on. Let me back this up a little bit. Excuse me. You can use your little scraper, or you can use your brayer or your roller, whatever works. Okay, I'm going to feed this in, and it'll grab onto it. And now my number 3 came up. Let me see if I can switch over that. So see, it says it's now black on number 3. Click go. So I'm going to head and click go. And then I'll switch back to the camera. And it just counts down on your screen. The reason I ended up with my initials on my plant stick is because I was just trying out the monogram section to see how it worked. And then now that I got one, see, it'll look funny if I have one that doesn't have something on it. So see, I'm just tried out a couple different ones. These were a little harder to weed, especially when you get to this little swirly thing out here. When you're weeding, it kind of picks up a lot. You just have to push it back down. A little patience is all it takes. And now my screen, excuse me, on my workspace is having me unload it. Now, if you're concerned it might not have cut all the way, you want to look at it. Don't unload it. Look at it, and if it didn't cut all the way, just I'll show you. Hold on. You can see this is the unload. This is the unload, and then there's the rerun. So I've done a few of these, so mine should be fine. And then when we're done, down the bottom right, oh, there it is. We're going to just hit done, and it brings us back to the screen we were at. So let's see how we look. So let me just set this aside. And I'm just going to cut out around trying to stay in the screen for you. I know that's kind of glary, but I'm just going to cut out around where the actual lettering is. So I still have all of this left. And if you want to know how to put this on your mat so you use certain parts, I have some previous videos on how to do that. And it's pretty simple. Once you know, it's like most things, once you know, it's much easier. Sorry if that noisy traffic there. I find I have a hard time catching the edge to weed this. So I'm coming in, I don't know if you can see. Probably not. But I'm coming in where the B is because that's the biggest. And I'm just going to pick on the part outside the B. I find that works better for me. See, then I can grab a hold of it. And then what I'm doing is I'm rolling back the paper back. And go slow because it depends on, let me move in a little bit closer. There we go. It depends on what the shape of the letter is. So you don't want to just think that this just peels off, because my G, this big piece goes back into the G. I'll show you here in a second. So now when I get here, I've got to pull up in the different direction, because this little piece of the G doesn't come off when I'm peeling down this way. I had to kind of come back. It'll make sense to you when you do yours. Just don't automatically think you're just going to peel it down real quick. And I just got to take out this middle of the B. So I would suggest the first time you do that, do one of these, and it's, fairly new to you, or you haven't done one in a while, which is usually my case. Just pick something that's simple to weed so you don't get all irritated with yourself, or with the vinyl, and work up to something that's a little more. So there's my little initials, and I can double check that, say that fits on there fine. So now I need a piece of, I think I had another little square. Well, I'll use this one. So here's my transfer tape, and it's bigger than I need, but that's okay. And I'm going to bring it in a little closer. Oh, it's probably too close. Sorry. I'm just going to lay my transfer tape on top. And this transfer tape happens to have lines on it. So I'm going to try and line up that center line with the middle of the B. That just makes it easier to line it up if you're concerned about lining it up when you put it on the stick or whatever you're putting it onto. And I'm going to just use my little scraper to hold that down. And then rather than pulling the tape off, I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to just peel. Oh, and see, my letter's still stuck to my tape. So it could be that, I'm sorry. It's like it's supposed to be stuck to the tape, isn't it? Sorry about that. So it's on my tape. So now I'm ready to put it on the stick, and I'm gonna back up a little bit, because I need to turn the stick a little bit towards me without me putting my whole shoulder into your way. And I'm just gonna line it up. So now, because I used that center line for the center of the B, now I can use these outside lines to center it on the stick. But, it is a garden stick, so don't worry about it if you're not perfect. And I'm just going to use my scraper again. And I'm going to roll this back slowly. I'm going to put my transfer tape back down. I can see that my fingerprints are all over that transfer tape. And then I lightly and carefully run this one more time. And there we go. Let me stay in the light better here. Okay? So if you just wanted to know how to do the monogram, that's the monogram part. Now I'm going to do the vertical letters that'll be like this. Okay? So I have to clean up. Otherwise things will be sticking to me. Oh, excuse me, got my head in the way. So let's now switch back to Design Space. Okay, so we have our lettering, and we can just drag. So all I did was start up here, click, hold my mouse down, and drag to the bottom right. and I can hit delete on my keyboard, or I can come up here on the right and delete, because we don't need that anymore. So now we're going to make the words in a vertical order. Now what I did to make it easier to me visually is I went over to shapes and I just grabbed the square, brought it down, changed the color. Again, doesn't matter what color. And I want to make this square the size of my stick area that I want to put the words in. So let's switch back to the camera for a minute. So I knew that I needed to bury part of this in the dirt, and I thought probably up to here. And so, like I said, I could have gone down with the ES on this if I wanted to, but I wanted it up high enough so that I could easily read it, and big enough. So I went about as big as I could. So remember, this is 1 inch across, and so I figured I could go. Now, originally I measured from down after this little, see the little indent right here? So I measured down from here down, and then I ended up moving it up a little higher, so I really could have added more on. So I'm going to measure from, I'll go from the indent again, just that way if you decide to move it up or down, you'll be okay. So I went 1, 2, 3, 4, about 4 inches down. I really could go 5, but I'm just going to say 4. So let's switch back again. Okay, so I'm going to make this 1 by 4. And this is a perfect example of where I need to unlock the lock. Let me, oh, didn't mean to go to 200. Here we go. So, because this is a square, if I make this bigger, it's just going to keep going just a bigger square. So I need to unlock it. And up at the top, just to make it easier for myself, I'm going to put 0.75, because I want to be inside of that 1 inch. And I'm going to make this height 4 and hit enter. Now I have a visual of what the area is going to look like. So next I need to bring in text. So I'm going to do squash this time. So I'm going to bring in the text box, and I'm going to click in the text box after the T, and I'm going to backspace, because I only need 1 letter, and I want it on cap, well, I want it all caps, so it's going to be an S. And right now, let me click outside. Right now, I'm not going to worry about well, let's do this. Let's get an idea of the size, because then we can copy it. So this time I use the arrow. And I can go a little bit bigger, because remember, I made my box the 7.5. So I can go edge to edge, but I still got to fit the rest of the words in, but that's okay. I'm going to go about like right there. And now I need my next letter. So I've already sized this one. So if I come over to the right, way over the top right where it says duplicate, I'm going to make another letter. I'm going to double click inside of it so my cursor is over on the right, hit my backspace and the Q, and I'm going to click out here because you get concerned with the space. Well, once you click on it, there's no space. So we know that Q, because every letter is going to be a little bit different. So let's make this so at least it fits inside of our area. There we go. So I'm going to duplicate the Q this time, up on the right, duplicate. Double click on the right side of the Q, backspace, U. Click out here. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate again. And for some reason, it keeps going down further and further with whatever new letter comes in. Let's see if I go back and use the Q and duplicate. Well, that's not too bad. Double click. Oh. And I know I'm bigger. Now my S looks a little small compared to the rest. I know I'm past the green part, and that's okay. And then I need one more, so I'm going to use the U again. I think I used the Q before, but because I think if I use the S, it'll be down below my screen, where my screen is. Double click, backspace, H. Okay, and I'm just going to bring that in there. So now I'm going to move the green out of the way just for a minute. I want to grab all my letters, and I'm going to come up to the top where it says Align. Click on that, and I want to center horizontal. And that just means coming down in a row, they're all centered. And then I'm going to come back to the Align, and I'm going to come down to the bottom, and I'm going to distribute vertically. And what that should do, but I see that it didn't, is it should put the same kind of spacing between them. But I noticed my Q is a little off, so I'm just going to click on my Q. And I'm using my down arrows on my keyboard because it's easy when you just want to move something a little, and just move that Q down. Now I know the whole thing is too big, so I'm going to grab the whole thing. The first thing before I forget is I'm going to change the color to, let's go blue. Oh, I guess it could be yellow. Yellow like the squash is. And now, let me zoom out a little bit. I'm locked again, and that's what I want to be. So now I'm going to bring it down. And remember, I had extra room at the bottom, so I can really go past the green, because the green is just a visual. And remember, I said I could really go another inch, especially if I moved it up some. So I made it a little bigger. Let's see what we're at. So we're at 4.5 roughly, 4.5 long. So that's fine. Let me zoom in closer so you can see it better. There we go. So I'm at a little over 4.5. That's fine. It doesn't matter if I'm centered on the green, because I'm not going to use the green rectangle. So I'm going to pull that rectangle to the side, and I'm going to come over on the right, and I'm going to go down where it's darker, and it has the green, and I'm going to click on the eyeball so that disappears. It's still there for me to use, but if I click on the eyeball and I can't see it, it won't try to cut it. And I think my U is a little bit off, so I'm going to bring it down a tad. And remember, this is just my garden stake. So now I'm ready to cut. So if I now click Make It, so if you're following along with me, stop here and let me show you what would happen, so you don't have to do this. But if I click Make It now, and I click on my map, And you see how it moved it all around? Because what it does is it makes sure that you use the least room possible. So I'm going to come down to the bottom and cancel. I'm going to make sure this is highlighted. I'm going to come down to the bottom right. You see where I am? Right down the bottom right. And I'm going to click attach. And that means that I want it just like this when it cuts, because it's much easier for me to put my transfer tape on and take it over to whatever I'm putting this on. So now I can click make it. And again, I'm on a regular mat, so I'm going to click on the mat. If you're using the smart material, you would click on the smart material, but I'm just using regular vinyl that I had. I'm clicking on that. I'm still using my small mat. Even though my strip of vinyl is longer, I'm going to use my small mat because I only need the small mat for the actual part that's cutting, which is right here. And this time I'm going to pull this over and I'm going to put it between, it's between the 2 and the 3. You see that? Between the 2 and the 3. So when I put it on my mat, we'll get there in a second, I'm going to put it between the 2 number and the 3 number. So I like to leave this up in case I forget by the time I get my mat out. So let's switch over to the camera. Okay, so I have my mat, taken my cover off. I've got my yellow strip. Excuse me. I want, just to make it easier for yourself if you're doing this the first time, have your regular inch numbers on the top and on the left. If I turn it over, which the mat feeds in either way, I'm on metric, which is fine, except I think when you're first doing this, excuse me, it's easier because I said I was going to be between the 2 and the 3. So I'm just going to lay my vinyl down. Stand up to this one. Between the 2 and the 3. And I'm make sure I'm up at the top. And do you see how this is hanging off there? That's perfectly fine. Excuse me. Because the mat doesn't feed all the way through. If it fed all the way through, it'd fall out the other side. Took me a while to understand that myself. So I'm going to feed my mat. Remember, I'm between the 2 and the 3, and I'm going down the length. So now, because I left my screen on so I could look over at my screen, my computer screen, and make sure, yep, I'm between the 2 and the 3. On my computer screen, just like before, I'm going to hit continue. And I'll show you the screen. It's going to be the same as before. Now I have that premium vinyl in my favorites, so I don't have to go looking for it. Now it's saying load tools and materials. So let me switch back. So I'm going to bring this forward a little more because it might go in further and I got stuff behind me there. All right, so I'm going to unload, and let me show you that because I can see my mat on this side is kind of bowed up a little bit. So let me switch back. So right here at the bottom left, it says unload. Okay. And then I'm just going to, let me switch back again. Sorry for making you dizzy there. I know some people like to see both the computer part and the machine part. So it unloaded. Don't ever try to pull it back because it'll feel like it's stuck. Don't yank it back. Use your load and unload. Now, because I went in and went back and it moved, I have to go back to my unload again. Okay, it should be okay. All right. I've got myself stuck. This could happen to you. And see, it won't load because I caught it. I was holding it while I was talking as it was trying to load. And if I hit my unload, let me move it back. If I hit my unload, it's not doing anything. So I'm going to hit down the bottom right. I'm going to click on cancel. And it says, are you sure you want to cancel the cut? Yes. It's only taking me back one screen. So I just have to hit continue again. So it's getting a little slow for some reason. And then I'm going to hit the vinyl again. This time. Oh, I'm going to... I can see that still I got that little bend because I was not over my machine. But I'm going to go ahead and click the go. I'm over just a tad too far on that side. I get nervous because I see this part coming out past the yellow. You have to remember your knife's over more to the left. In case you have that same moment of panic. And I can see that it's cut. So I can go ahead and hit the unload. I'm not going to switch back this time. So I can take this out. I can take this off. And I always go ahead and put my sheet right back on, only because I end up throwing stuff on top of it. And I'm going to cut just below. So see, I have these pieces still to use again. But I have a lot of light, so I have to move it for the glare. And I'm going to do the same as I did before. I'm just going to grab and pick on the part of the vinyl that I'm taking off, not on my word. And see how I find it easier to get a hold of that. And remember, we're going to go slow. And right off, let me see if I can move in closer here. There we go. Right off, I can't pull this just down because that little part of the S right here. So you just want to take your time. And again with the A, because it's got to go back up right in this part to get that, see that little piece of the A. So I'm just going to pull it up. See how I did that? Same with the H. The bottom of the H is in, I'm trying not to stick myself, right here. So I'm just going to grab onto the, trying to do it so you can see here. And I'm just going to go sideways. Okay, so let me back that up again. So I just got to pick out the center of the Q. And I just stick it right onto that. I fold the big piece in half so I don't get stuck all over. And the little pieces I take out, I stick onto that. Especially if I have the fan on. Now, I got pieces stuck all over here. There we go. Okay, so now I have my word. Now let's see if, okay, my tape isn't quite, transfer tape, excuse me, isn't quite big enough. So I just cut another piece. And I'll still save this one till it doesn't work. And now you'll have to bear with me a minute while oh, there we go. So I'm just taking the transfer tape off of its backing. See, that same yellow piece just wants to stay with me forever. There we go. I want to get it off my finger because I don't want it to end up, excuse me, on the transfer tape. And again, I'm going to use that center line to kind of go down the center. And if I put this on my mat, so I'm kind of, let me do it this way. If I put this on my mat, so I'm halfway the distance here, and I can see the line coming right down the middle, except I got to turn it this way. That's why it's handy to have a mat. And I'm going to run that red line of my transfer tape and I've got a little extra transfer tape top and bottom because it was I didn't measure exactly. And I'm going to run that down. And if I need to, run it across. And if you're doing something that's a little more intricate, you may have to do it a little bit more. Okay, now I've got my stick ready. And I always double check. Okay, see, I can put that down further, but I'm going to bring it up like I did the other one. So you can see, I can see through to see where I want it to be. So if I want it down lower than this little indent, I can do that. I still have plenty of room, but I'm going to come up a little higher. So I want to turn it over. I want to pull back the backing that the letters were on. And now I'm going to just center it. Then run I call it a scraping tool, I'm not sure what it is, but run that down. And you saw I went in both directions, horizontal and vertical. And I'm going to grab my tape. I'm going to let's see if I can do it this way. It's stuck to my finger. I'm just kind of rolling along. And if I have anywhere that's not sticking, I just stop and rub this on a little more. Don't yank it. Just go slow. Take your time. Oh, see, my S is not down well. Well, I can see my S still isn't. I'm going to put my transfer tape back on its backing. And I'm just going to carefully, just be careful that you don't lift anything. I'm going to do that S again because it was giving me a little trouble. And they say this takes a couple days to kind of cure. But there we are. Let me zoom in a little closer. Oh. So there's our little squash. This piece of wood had some little knots in it. So there we have squash, tomato, pepper. So I hope you try it out. You may not have a garden, but if you've got a little herb garden at home, you can get little popsicle sticks or some kind of sticks. I think Walmart, dollar store, or the $1.25 store right now. And just make them smaller and put them on your plants. You may know what they are. I know what my plants are, but I thought it was kind of cute thing to give a little color and to just add a little personality to your garden. So I hope you try it out. try out the monogram, and just, you know, if you're just playing around, just get a couple of these sticks and stick them on there, or on anything you might have, popsicle sticks, whatever. Just be sure to measure your width and your length if you're using the popsicle sticks, or I think they even had tongue depressor sticks, and make that box. Now I'm going to switch back to the, oh, sorry, I put my head in the way again. I'm going to switch back to the design space again, because I want to show you one more thing. So one last thing I want to show you, we're back in this design space, and you'll want to save this, because if you want to do more, or you want to do another size, or it just helps, for me, it helps me remember what I did to get my letters and so forth. So we're going to come up to the top right to the save. I'm going to do save as, because I just saved this, but my recording wasn't right. So I'm going to do it. So do save as, and I made mine garden collection. So right here on the right hand side it says new collection, and you can just click the plus sign, and it'll ask you to name your new collection. And that way, think of the collection as like a folder, so you don't have 50 items here. Instead, you can put them into different folders. And since I already had the paint stick name, it thinks I want to name it a new one. So I'm going to just take that information away. Hopefully, it'll just go over the other one. And so you would put, in this case, it was paint stick names. That way, if I do something for my neighbor or my friend, and they have a little herb garden, and I want to make some herb ones with a popsicle stick, or I might want to just put herb names, or whatever the case may be, but I'll know it's all under the garden. And if once you already have it, a folder, you can just click on it here, and it'll come up and put it in that folder. So let's just hit save. And you've noticed at the top it turned blue and it says project saved. Your project paint stick name was saved successfully. So now you can bring that back up. It will be under where it says my projects right here on the top right. It'll be under there, and you can get it back up and either do some more, do some different ones, but at least you'll have it there. And like I always say, it doesn't cost anything to save something. So why not save it? So I hope you enjoyed doing this project with me, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining in. Bye.